Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate. Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhi Vrindavaneshware. Rishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bheva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'm going to change my view so I can watch everyone. And I don't see anyone. Okay. Okay, we got one. Thank you. You're up, you're sideways. There you go. Okay. So we're going to start reading. We're up to text number 40 of chapter 3. I don't know if someone could put it on the computer. Okay, so I guess everyone can repeat. Indriyani manobuddhir.
Indriyani manobuddhir.
Asyadhishtanam uchate.
Asyadhishtanam uchate.
Etir vimohai atyesha.
Etai vimohayatyesha.
Yanam avritya dehinam.
Jnanam avritya dehinam.
Indriyani manobuddhir.
Indriyani manobuddhir.
Asyadhishtanam uchate.
Asyadhishtanam uchate.
Etir vimohayatyesha.
Etai vimohayatyesha.
Yanam avritya dehinam.
Jnanam avritya dehinam.
Indriyani manobuddhir.
Indriyani manobuddhir.
Asyadhishtanam uchate.
Asyadhishtanam uchate.
Etir vimohayatyesha.
Etai vimohayatyesha.
Yanam avritya dehinam.
Jnanam avritya dehinam. Indriyani manobuddhir.
Asyadhishthanamuchyate.
Asyadhishthanamuchyate.
Eter vimohayatyesha.
Etai
Jnanam avritya dehinam.
Jnanam avritya dehinam. Indriyani manobuddhir.
Indriyani manobuddhir.
Asyadhishthanamuchyate.
Asyadhishthanamuchyate.
Etai vimohayatyesha.
Eter vimohati esha.
Jnanam avritya dehinam.
Jnanam avritya dehinam. Indriyani manobuddhir.
Indriyani manobuddhir.
Asyadhishthanamuchyate.
Asyadhishthanamuchyate.
Eter vimohayati esha.
Etai vimohayatyesha.
Jnanam avritya dehinam.
Jnanam avritya dehinam.
Anyone else? Indriyani.
Indriyani.
The senses.
The senses.
Manaha.
Manaha.
The mind.
The mind.
Buddhi.
Buddhi.
Intelligence.
The intelligence.
Asya.
Asya.
Of this lust.
Of this lust.
Adhishtanam.
Adhishtanam.
Sitting place.
Sitting place.
Uchate.
Uchyate.
Is called.
is called
Etae,
Etai.
by all these,
By
by
all
all
these,
these.
vimohayati,
Vimohyati
Vimohayati,
bewilders,
bewilder.
bewilders,
eshaha,
Eshaha
Eshaha,
this lust,
this
this
lust,
yanam,
Jnana
Jnanam,
knowledge,
knowledge,
avritya,
Avritya,
covering,
covering.
dehinam,
Dehina
Dehina,
of the embodied.
of the
of the
embodied.
embodied.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Purport. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all the activities of the senses, and thus when we hear about sense objects, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification. And as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositories of lust. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identifying itself with matter, and thus with the mind and senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10:84-13. Yasyatma buddhir kunape tridatuke svadi kalatra dishu bhauma ijadi yat tirtha buddhi salile nakarichit gyaneshva Vikyeshu Saeva Gokara. A human being who identifies this body made of three elements with the self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like an ass or a cow. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharani Nivasesa Sunyavadi Paschachade Satarani. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. So even in the previous slates, a few verses, it talks about lust. The wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So this is our enemy. It's our eternal enemy. It's eternal, at least while we're in the material world. Sometimes eternal means you can't trace out its beginning. So in that sense, it's eternal because we don't know when this lust actually started. But our pure consciousness, I'm a spirit soul, I'm pure, I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, gets covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust. And this is nice from the last verse, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So if you think that I have this lusty desires, let me satisfy them and get them out of the way so I can then engage in Krishna consciousness. That is not Shastric type of thinking, because in the Shastras it says it burns like fire. It's never satisfied. So this lust, the more we satisfy it, the more it burns. The more fuel you put on a fire, the more the fire is going to burn. So that's not how you can't satisfy this lust and then get rid of it. You have to control it by regulating the senses. So this is what is advised by the sages, by Krishna, by the guru, is that we have to regulate the senses. It's not that we just stop all sense gratification, because that would be a very difficult thing to do, because we have to, that's our only material taste is for sense gratification. So we can allow some under controlled circumstances. We can eat even nice palatable foods. We don't have to just eat just things that don't have any taste. But we can eat, but it has to be prasadam, Krishna prasadam. So in this way, we can engage our senses with some limited, sense gratification. And we can never think, we should never think that we can become satisfied. We can satisfy this lusty desire and then it'll go away. It never goes away. Actually, it goes away by not satisfying it. Eventually, but you can't just not satisfy it, because also in the Bhagavad Gita it says, what will repression accomplish? If you just try to not satisfy it at all, I'm not going to give in, then eventually you'll give in, because you can't stay free from engaging in some sort of sense pleasure. So we're with Krishna consciousness is so powerful that we can engage in some sense gratification and at the same time still continue making spiritual advancement. So the enemy is captured. This is a very nice, Prabhupada speaking here in the form of like a general in a battlefield. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul. And therefore, Lord Krishna, our commander-in-chief, is given hints of those places so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Who would not want to conquer the enemy? I mean, even the demons want to conquer their enemies, but they don't realize their enemy is within. They think the enemy is outside. And everyone, either those who are thoughtful and know the enemy is within, or those who are totally controlled by their senses, see the enemy is without. But they want to conquer their enemies. Everybody wants to conquer their enemies. So you should want to conquer this enemy. And in order to conquer him, okay, where is he? I got to shoot at him. I got to do something. Where is he located? I don't know where he is. It's a sniper somewhere. But actually now we know where he is. He's given it into these three places: the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. This is where this enemy resides. So therefore we can now work consciously and figure out how we can kill this enemy, how we can destroy this enemy. What Krishna is giving hints of those places, so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. So then the next part probably talks about the mind is the center of all the activities of the senses. So we have our senses, but we have our mind. Our mind is conditioned, just like it's programmed for sense gratification. We let our mind know what we want. I want to enjoy in this way. I want to enjoy in that way. So then our mind sees, oh, we can enjoy this, we can enjoy that, and reminds us and shows us, because our mind is not pure. Just like it says in the Bhagavad Gita, the mind is our best friend or our worst enemy. A mind that's not controlled is our enemy. So why would you listen to your enemy? This is your enemy. Like, for instance, if Russia is our enemy and they tell us, hey, why don't you guys do this? Maybe what they're saying is okay to do, but we have to consider it. Does this make sense? Why should I do that? We don't just accept something blindly from an enemy. So similarly, the mind is our enemy. A mind may also tell us something good to do because we enjoy kirtan. So our mind may tell us there's kirtan. So it's not like we don't ever listen to our mind, because I enjoy kirtan. I finally got it through to my mind. I like kirtan. So now when there's a kirtan, my mind tells me, hey, there's a kirtan. Why don't you go here and join the kirtan? You'll like that. So then I say, no, my lust is sitting in my mind. I can't listen. No, we have to have intelligence. We have to distinguish. We have to have knowledge. That's where the intelligence comes in, to know what to analyze things in their proper perspective. That's intelligence. So, but lust is also, we can have lusty intelligence. In other words, I want to enjoy my senses. So now I use my intelligence, how to become creative in figuring out ways I can enjoy my senses. So this is a lusty intelligence. But if we use our intelligence properly, we'll be using it to understand who I am, why am I here, what the purpose of life is. So we can use all these things. And our senses, we can certainly use our senses in Krishna service. And that's the best way to engage our senses so that we can become purified. Our senses will get some pleasure, engaged in actually performing service for Krishna. We have some devotees. There's so many things. We can clean, we can do the flowers, we can cook, we can chant. There's so many things we can do with our senses for pleasing Krishna. And if we do these things, we actually surrender, we get pleasure from doing these things. And it's actually a higher taste. It's better than sense gratification. Sense gratification is gross. This is subtle. It's so much higher. I mean, it's gross in a sense that we're using our senses, but it's the pleasure one derives is higher. Param dristvā nivartate. By experiencing a higher taste, you can give up the lower taste. But you have to use your senses in Krishna's service. You can't just sit back and think all day long about it. I mean, if you can't use your senses and all you can do is think, then if you can think of different things, like for instance, I think it was South Indian Brahmin who was thinking, he heard that if you can't do devotional service because you don't have facility, you're too poor to make an offering, you can't get anything nice, so you can do it in your mind and you get the same benefit. So he heard that and he started doing all this wonderful elaborate service in his mind. So that can also be done. If for some reason you can't physically do service, you can do it in your mind. And by doing it in your mind, you get the same spiritual benefit, the same purification, the same association with Krishna. So in any case, but if you can do it physically, for instance, I can make wonderful offerings. I make nice food for myself, but for Krishna, I just offer a leaf and a flower and just a little fruit and water. But I make an elaborate meal with ghee and vegetables and grains and so many nice things, but I don't offer it to Krishna. That's not what Krishna's saying. He's saying if you don't have anything else, if you just have a leaf and flower and fruit and water, then that's enough. I'm happy with that. But if you have more, you use it in his service. You use everything you can in Krishna's service. So that's what we have to do. And that's the best way to control the mind. And that's the best way to use our intelligence, is figuring out what I can do for Krishna. Some devotees are very eager to do service. They want to always do service. And that's the best thing they can do, because that way they're controlling their senses by using their senses in Krishna's service. For instance, this lust, okay, I have this lust. Now, what do I do? The way I feel, I'm not gonna give in to my lusty desires. I'm not gonna give into it. I'm not gonna give into it. I'm gonna give into it. I have to get a higher taste. I have to do something else with my senses. I can't just negate it. I can't just say it's not there, or I'm not going to listen to this pushing. I'm not going to fall for it. You have to do something. You have to take shelter of Krishna. Hearing, chanting, remembering. There's 9 processes. Any one of them or a combination of them. That's what you have to do, because it doesn't just happen automatically. I'm just not going to do that. You can sit. It's like the Prabhupada gives the example of the woman is like a frying pan and the man is like the butter. and the butter goes in the frying pan, and it can say whatever it wants to say. I'm not going to melt. I'm not going to melt. I'm not going to melt, but it's going to melt. Doesn't matter. That's what happens. So I have to be careful. I have to engage in a certain way. I have to avoid certain association. I have to be strict, but I have to engage my senses. I have to engage myself in Krishna service. It's so important. And there's so much service. If people want to do service, there's so much service. It's not like if people are selective, there's, I think there's some organization of in the United States government, selective service. If they're selective in what service they do, then they may not find anything. I would like to do this for Krishna. We should want to do anything for Krishna, not just what I like. I might say I'm good at doing this, but there's nothing for you to do in that. There's cleaning. Well, I'm not very good at cleaning. Well, learn how to clean. It's not hard to clean. Anybody can clean. All we have to do is make an effort. Just try. And maybe have somebody who knows how to clean nicely correct us if we're doing something wrong. I notice a lot of men don't know how to sweep a floor. Now they're learning gradually and mop a floor, but they're making an effort. They're trying. And, so we can do stuff. I know, from the past, I remember just men who, they never did anything like that. It was always the women in the houses that did it. So now they don't know how to do anything. All you ladies out there who have sons, you should train them up how to clean while they're younger so they can learn. And then they can sweep them up the temple floors. But we have to use, that's one thing. There's so many things. There's the flowers, there's book distribution. But we should do anything that is available. In other words, I want to control my senses. I don't want to be controlled by lust. And I'm willing to do a certain particular type of service so that I can control my senses. That isn't going to work as well as I'm willing to do anything, whatever Krishna wants. I shouldn't care what I want to do. It's whatever Krishna wants me to do. That's bhakti, devotional services. Otherwise, it's almost like karma yoga. I'm doing what I want to do for Krishna. I'm doing it for Krishna, but it's what I want to do for Krishna. Whereas somebody who's willing to do anything, whatever Krishna wants, that's certainly more advanced. And we have to try to, even if we can't do it all the time, at least once in a while, today, I'm going to do anything Krishna wants me to do. I remember one devotee I was working with here. He didn't really like doing physical work. He liked doing more of the mental things, giving class or leading kirtan. But he surrendered one day and he worked with me putting up a fence in the old temple, this fence that goes from the front of the driveway all the way to the back. And we worked on it for a couple of days and he worked really hard and he did really well. I'm sure I corrected him so many times and things. I'm sure he really appreciated it like everybody normally does. But he did really good. He made up his mind he was going to surrender and he did. So we can do that. I'm going to surrender for one day. Like when people surrender and surrender in whatever. I don't have to be the leader. I don't have, that's all Maya. It's not Maya to be a leader, but it's Maya that I don't want to follow somebody else. I want to be the leader. There's so many different instances. So if we really want to control this lust, we should be willing to do anything for Krishna. Whatever, usually what the authority tells you to do, or you ask the authority, is it okay if I do this? Because the authorities aren't giving you any service. And then we should see that it's coming from Krishna. I'm doing this for Krishna. And you can come up with your own things you can do for Krishna, but you can also ask, is there anything to do? Especially when we open the temple. Even before we open the temple, we had last week, we had just a handful of people came to help cleaning the temple. Raga Sindhu sent things out on, I don't even know what he sent them out on. Some sort of WhatsApp, maybe. I think that's what it was. And then, and a few people responded. And then he had to call people too. just to make sure, because there wasn't so many people just responded. So we're getting an opportunity. We should see that opportunity. This is an opportunity for me to use my senses in Krishna's service. I mean, of course, I may have some other service that I have to do at that time. So that's a whole different thing. But if I don't have anything to do for Krishna at that time, I just have I was just going to wash my car. I'll wash my car another time. Let me do this now. This is what we have to do in order to fight this enemy. Is I have to use my senses in Krishna's service. Otherwise, my senses are going to be used lustfully. There's nothing else you can do. You can't just think about it. You have to engage in some sort of higher engagement. And by doing that, you also become happy. And your lust decreases. So this is your eternal enemy. So don't give in to your eternal enemy. You have to try to fight it. And this is a very practical way of fighting this enemy. And anyone can do it. And you don't even have to do it in the temple. You can do it at home. You have your altar at home. You chant at home. You read at home. You offer your food at home. You do all these things. And then, okay, I got extra time. What should I do? I can chant more. I can read more. I can call somebody up and tell them something I just read, which is really nice. And I got some realizations from it. You can talk to other people. Or you can have some books and go outside, wear a mask, and try to distribute them. And so much you can do in Christian service. So before, I will read the next verse also. But before I do that, I may not read it if I have enough questions. So does anyone have any questions? Thank you. One question. Yes, Manishi.
So Prabhuji, if we think that I would like to do this service but not that service, is it also considered as lust, that I have lust and I'm just inclined towards doing some service but not the other service?
I don't think that necessarily means lust, but it means you're not really fully surrendered to Krishna. You can have a service that you'd like to do. That's fine. That's good. You should. But if there's, okay, your authority tells you to do something, but you have something else you wanted to do and you like doing, and maybe you don't like doing the other thing. And you can mention it to the authority, like, is it okay if I do this instead? And it depends on who your authority is. If it's me, I would say something like, I just asked you to do this. Why are you talking about it? So you'll get a pretty direct, straight answer. But in some cases, it doesn't matter. We need people to do both things. So whatever one, it doesn't make a difference. But generally, if I want to do this and I don't want to do this, our wants should be what Krishna wants. Even Prabhupada gave that example once when a devotee says, I want to distribute millions of Back to Godhead magazines because it's your desire. Prabhupada said, which you have to kind of follow, that's not so difficult, but the meaning is there, that he said, it's not my desire. It's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire. It's Bhakti Vinod's desire. It's Bhakti Siddhanta's desire. Then it's my desire. So I only desire what they want. I don't have my own desires. It's what they want that I desire. That becomes my desire, what they want. Because you just want to please them. Your real desire is I want to please them. So if you really want to please them, then you do whatever they want. Why would you want to do, I don't want to do that. I want to do, that's okay. In the beginning, and maybe for a long time, I'm going to do certain things that I want to do, but I'm doing it for Krishna. I have a choice between this and this. I'm doing this. I like doing this. I don't like doing this other thing. That's purifying. And eventually you're going to have to come to the platform eventually that you're willing to do anything, whatever Krishna wants. Pradyumna, Krishna's son, He said that if there's something I like and Krishna doesn't like, I accept it as poison. And if there's something that I don't like, but Krishna likes, I accepted it as nectar. So your desires actually change. Why do I have any desires? It's all based on my own understanding of who I am. It's not based on the spiritual line of the cyclic succession. And we're not robots either. We're not telling you to just do things just that, but which we are saying, what is the highest thing you can do? And that's, and in some cases, I don't even know how much it really matters. If you want to do something and someone else wants you to do something else, it may not even matter. But ultimately, it does matter as to the consciousness you have. I want to do whatever Krishna wants me to do. We may not know what that is, but we should want to do that. And in the, years ago when Prabhupada was here, the way we knew we were doing what Krishna wanted was we followed our authority. I'm not trying to brainwash you or anything to follow what I say, but that is a fact. We did whatever our authority told us to do, and we knew that's what Prabhupada wanted us to do. So we did it. And this movement really spread like anything by following that principle. So we shouldn't just follow some other principle that I'm doing what I want because I know best. We don't know best. Krishna wants us. I mean, why does he say to accept a spiritual master? Inquire from him submissively. Inquire from him submissively. Render service to him, because a self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So don't think it. I'm not saying anybody's thinking this way, but we shouldn't think that I don't need another authority. I know best. I know what's best for me. That's very puffed up. Krishna wants us to be humble. He wants us to follow authority. It's like, I know one guy, he's crazy. He's not into Krishna consciousness, although he kind of accepts a lot of Krishna consciousness. He accepts so many things. He's crazy. I mean, I'm not saying that he's crazy. He's certified crazy by the authorities in the material world. The psychiatrists would all certify this person's crazy. And he thinks he's very religious because he does whatever he thinks God tells him to do. But because he's nuts, he doesn't know what God's telling him to do. And he doesn't follow any authority whatsoever. He just follows himself. So I don't know what happens to somebody who's completely nuts, and they're doing what they think God wants them to. Even the Muslims, a lot of them, not a lot of them, a small percentage of them, but they blow people up and they kill people. They just killed a bunch of little girls in whatever country where they were going to school, and they killed them because they're going to school. Girls shouldn't go to school. Now, where did they get this from? In their own minds, or maybe they have some authority that's totally nuts and they listen to them. People sometimes listen to crazy people because they're convinced. There was right after 9/11 sometime, there was a crazy guy in an airplane telling everybody that, and trying to break into the cockpit because there was terrorists in the cockpit. There are terrorists in there. We got to get them out. We got to get them out. We got to get the plane back. And he convinced people, some people, but most people knew this guy is nuts. There's no terrorists in the cockpit. So eventually they got him. But he wasn't a terrorist. He was just crazy. So sometimes people who are crazy, they're so convinced of something and people listen. But that doesn't mean, so somebody who listens to their own crazy mind doesn't mean they're doing the right thing. And Krishna wants us humble. He really likes his devotees humble. He doesn't like his devotees to be proud. We've seen it with Brahma. We've seen it with Indra. When they become proud, Krishna puts them in their place. So and with Indra more than once, he had that tendency. So Krishna doesn't like his devotees being proud. So how would I not be proud if I know best of what to do? I know better than I don't even have a guru because I don't need a guru. I'm just listening to God from within. But if you're actually listening to God from within, you accept the guru and you follow his instruction. That's humble. That's so much humbler than this, than you know best. So I mean, because I'm thinking of this one particular guy who doesn't accept any authority except his own mind. And it's very dangerous to accept your mind as authority, because I can tell you another very, very sad story. This man was nuts and he was doing everything for God. And God told him to kill somebody. And he had a son who was apparently not so bright, who followed him. And he convinced his son, because he's his father and he's convincing God wants us to do these things. And they both killed different people. And then God, at least in his own mind, told him to kill that person who is most dear to you. And then he killed his son, and that's how he got caught. That's crazy, completely nuts, but he's thinking. So sometimes you don't know what God is telling you in your heart or in your mind and what he's actually wants you to do. So you have an external authority. We also have the Shastras. I mean, stuff like that. You can see, where's he telling you? Well, you might say, well, he's telling Arjuna to kill these people. Now he's telling me that. I mean, you can speculate so many things. So you do need to have some authority. And by having an authority, number one, it makes you humble. If you actually follow the authority, it makes you humble, that you're no longer the big authority in your life. You're accepting someone who knows more than you, and you're doing what they want. And number two, because they have knowledge, they've seen the truth, they actually know what the right thing is for you to do. So they're giving you good advice. So that's the higher platform. But to just do what you want to do and do it for Krishna, that things that you should be doing for Krishna. In other words, I like doing this particular thing. Okay, say you like doing the flowers for Krishna. You like doing the flowers for Krishna, and we like you doing the flowers for Krishna, so there's no problem there. But if something else came up, which for some reason we have to do this other thing, you'd have to be able to switch from doing one thing to the other thing. That's just a practical thing. And most people can engage in what they like to do. But that's not the highest principle. I'll do whatever Krishna wants. Another example, Sariputta. He is a very, very, very intelligent person. He passed away, the Prabhupada disciple, scientist, mathematician. And when he moved into the temple, for the first couple of weeks, the devotees, they gave him the service of washing pots. He's got his PhD in math, not just any old mathematician with a PhD. He was really, really a genius. He was, if people who knew him, everyone would agree he's a genius. So you can be a PhD and not be a genius. Or you can be a PhD in the plow department, as Srila Prabhupada says. But he was very, very, very smart. But he washed pots because they asked him to wash pots. Nobody knew he was so smart. Then when they found out, then they engaged him according to his propensities. And he wrote so many books and spreading Krishna consciousness to the scientific world. But he was willing to do whatever he wants. So Krishna, in one sense, you might say, was testing him to see if he's, humble. And he was. He's willing to do whatever, even though he had so much he could have offered. But he did what he was told. And then somehow they found out his credentials and they engaged him appropriately. So we should all be willing to do anything for Krishna. We may have preferences of what we like to do. That's fine. I mean, that's good. You know, and some devotees don't like to give up their service. That's good too. But ultimately, you have to do what Krishna wants or what the Guru wants. It's like Tomal Krishna Maharaj. And it's a long story, but he was in charge of the Radha Damodar party. They were distributing more books than anyone, and then or any temple, and then there were some problems because they didn't do everything right. They take devotees from other temples to join their party, stuff like that. So other temples didn't like it, so they were complaining to Prabhupada about it. And Prabhupada wanted to know what to do. And he said, Tomal Krishna Maharaj himself said, well, maybe I should go to China. Prabhupada said, yes, you should go to China. And then he said, well, I can't go to China because then who's going to run Radha Damodar party? Oh, we'll find someone else to do that. Oh, well, I can't go to China for that. He came up with so many reasons of why he was arguing with Prabhupada. Prabhupada's telling him to go to China, and he was arguing. And Tomal Krishna Maharaj himself said that Prabhupada was actually getting upset with him because he was not surrendering. And then he finally agreed, and he asked if he could take someone with him, and Prabhupada said, yes, anybody you want. And he took Drishtadyumna, and they started the preaching in China. And then I remember when there was initiations in India, and there was Chinese devotees getting initiated. That was the first time that Chinese devotees were getting initiated. Anyway, the point is, you can explain to the authority why you should do something else, but ultimately you have to be willing to do whatever Krishna wants. Hopefully your authority is telling you what Krishna wants, because that's more of a problem we have now. Even though years ago that problem was there. Even one time there was a problem in New York, and some people followed the authority. The authority was actually wrong. And some people didn't follow the authority because they thought that the authority was wrong. You know, it wasn't just a simple thing. My understanding is if he tells you to do anything, as long as it's not breaking the regulated principles or it's not stop chanting your rounds, then you should follow it. But anyway, there was so later, when they found out the authority was wrong, they asked Srila Prabhupada, who was right? Those devotees who followed whatever the authority said, or those devotees who questioned certain things that they were doing that was wrong? And you know what Prabhupada's answer was? Anybody want to guess? And if you know it, then don't say. But if you're not sure, if you're just hearing, anyway, I'll tell you. He said they were both right. So even if you're not sure and you follow your authority, you're still protected. But it is, I heard he said, but this one devotee who was following the authority, this one particular devotee who was also been a devotee for a while and really was smart and knew the philosophy, he said, but he should have known better. So that means that it's better if you know when somebody is off. Better if you actually have enough knowledge to know this person is off. That's better than just accepting blindly whatever they say. So, but even accepting blindly, you're still protected, unless it's something obvious, you know. Okay, I don't even know what your question was anymore, but thank you.
You answered my question, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Anyone else have a question? Well, everybody's muted except for Nanda Gopal, but I don't hear him. I don't see him. Oh, so I don't know if I have enough time to read the next verse. No, I'm not going to have enough time. Okay, so I'll just go over more of the purport here again, because I didn't go over the whole purport. Mind is the center of all the activities of the senses, and thus when we hear about sense objects the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification. And as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositories of lust. Repositories of lust. It's a place where this lust is. Like there's a repository of nuclear waste. It's a place where you put all this nuclear waste. It's a repository for the nuclear waste. So there's also this repository of lust, and it's in the mind. We got 3 repositories for this lust because it can't fit in all in one place. So we have the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. So if we know this is where the lust is, we don't listen to these things. And in order not to listen to these things, we have to know what are the things we are supposed to do. So we basically have to know right from wrong. You know, if we know right from wrong, then we know we have to use our senses in Krishna's service, and we don't use our senses for sense gratification. So if we know that, then we can make a decision as to what is, who am I listening to? So if our senses, our mind, or our intelligence is trying to figure out how to obtain, how to satisfy these lusty desires using your intelligence, then we have to see that this is not right, because I know that's the wrong thing. I have to use my intelligence to figure out how I can control my mind, how I can control my senses. I have to use my intelligence. So this reservoir, repositories of lust. Next, the intelligent department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. The capital, we have each state has a capital, each country has a capital. So the capital of the lusty propensity, that's a good question. What is the capital? Let's see. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lusty propensities. So what is the capital of lusty propensities? That would be, if we didn't just read it, nobody would get that. What is the capital of lusty propensities? Somebody might guess it, but the capital of the lusty propensities is our intelligence department. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor to the soul, to the spirit soul. So lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter, and thus with the mind and senses. So we have to use our intelligence with the next door neighbor to the soul. How you doing, soul? Okay, how are you? So we have to use our intelligence for the benefit of the soul, not use our intelligence for our own lusty desires. So if we're using our intelligence in this way, then we'll become pure and we'll actually get to see our neighbor better. We can see our neighbor, who our neighbor is. Hey, that's me. And I thought I was this body. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I read earlier. A human being who identifies this body made of, it says 3 elements, earth, water, fire. What is it? What are the 3 elements? Maybe
Senses, mind, and intelligence.
Mucus, bile, and air. Mucus, bile, air.
I don't know what you said.
Mucus, bile, and air.
Oh, maybe. And where do you get that from?
What is mucus, bile, and air?
It says here, a human being who identifies this body made of 3 elements. It sounds right. With
Yeah, sure.
3 elements, with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen. who considers the land of birth worshipable. I mean, we all think where we're from is very special. You know, I definitely think Brooklyn is a very, very special place. It's worshipable. Of course, we did have a temple in Brooklyn for a long time, and we have a temple in Brooklyn now. So, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like an ass or a cow. So anybody who thinks any of these things, who identify, I mean, let's hear, a human being who identifies this body made of 3 elements. So we all identify this body to some degree with his self. So we're like an ass or a cow, because an ass or a cow, they do that. Considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen. So we take care of our byproducts, like an ass or a cow, or kinsmen or babies. I don't know who considers the land of birth worshipable. I don't know if an ass or a cow really considers where they're born. I don't know if they, who knows what they know. Maybe they talk about that when they're in private. And I know for sure, if they go to a place of pilgrimage, they might take a bath, but they're certainly not going to inquire from people who have transcendental knowledge. So we don't want to be like an ass or a cow. We want to be like a human being. Use our intelligence in Krishna's service.
Yeah, it's mucus bile and air.
It is? Oh, it is mucus, bile, and air. So I thought that sounded right, but I didn't know where you got it. Where is it from?
Where does it say that?
Srimad Bhagavatam 10:84-13.
1084:13 Bhagavatam. Look it up. Jiva just
Wait.
looked it up. I don't know how, but she did.
She must have done a search, right, Jiva?
Well,
Database.
what?
Yeah, Veda base. That's what I thought. I was gonna do that too. Way to go, Padmalochini. She's the one who said it, right?
Yes.
Did she look it up? Or she
I don't know. Did you know it or did you look it up?
Mataji, I have read this word, so I remember that 3 element.
I read the verse. It doesn't say it. So what do you mean you read the verse?
When? Where? Earlier.
I don't understand.
Nice. No, Pyari Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. But I am saying I have read this verse earlier, and I remember that this 3 element is called for these. So that's what when you were asking, so I said that.
Did you hear it in some lecture or something, Padmalochini? How would you know?
I think in the words maybe purport also Prabhupada says that, or I might have heard in the lecture.
It doesn't say it in the verse.
It does in the I mean, not in the words, but in the purport. Maybe Prabhupada says in the purport of that words. But I have read it or hear it.
Wait, show me in
This
this verse.
translation.
Show me where it says.
I'm saying in the Bhagavatam, this same verse.
But
It's quoting the Bhagavatam.
show me where is it saying?
In the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.
Oh, then that verse. Oh, okay. Finally got it understood. Okay, so in the Bhagavad Gita, it says where in the Bhagavatam this is 1084:13. And I didn't look it up because I read it beforehand, but I didn't get that deep into it. So she was more scrutinizingly studying the revealed scriptures. And she looked it up. Okay, but that is correct. Okay, so I guess we can end here. Anybody else have any comment?
If you do a search in the Veda base, it's in Ishopanishad also. It's in a lot of places.
In the old Bhagavad Gita, it doesn't tell you where it is.
Ishopanishad mantra 9 to 10, it says of 3 primary elements, mucus, bile, and air. Yeah, so.
Well, in the old Bhagavad Gita, it doesn't tell you that where the verse is.
Oh. So it says this body is a bag of mucus, bile, and air. Ishopanishad mantra 9 to 10 says that too.
9 to 10. It's either 9 or 10. What is it?
Yeah, it says 9 to 10 in the search. I don't know whether it's a 9 or 10.
Oh, that's super.
Oh, and then Chaitanya Charitamrita says that in 17:7.
Okay, so
Srimad
now you know what this body is. Why do you want to enjoy the senses of mucus, bile, and air? Oh, look at this mucus, bile, and air. Nice.
What did she say?
She said, especially the mucus.
Like as if bile is any better.
Air isn't so bad. It's just
Air.
a little too much.
Depends on where it's coming from.
Okay, Gita Mala.
The whole Ayurveda is based on this.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll end here. Let's offer our respectful obeisance to all the Vaishnava devotees. Vancha kalpaturu.
अनंतकोटि वैष्णव शिल प्रभुपाद प्यारे प्रभु
की जय. I like the way we ended the lecture.
Yeah, nice thing to remember.